You're good, Mayor.
Let us begin by acknowledging that we are gathered today in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral, present, and future territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Today, we gather with the intent followed by the living peace and friendship treaties. With respect, cooperation, and coexistence, we are all treated people. We now call this town council meeting of January 13, 2026 to order. We will start by taking additions to the agenda or approval of the agenda. Councillor Kaufman.
Yes, I at this point think a discussion would be merited upon the let's say correspondence issue or major issues and feedback on surveys and the like. We tend to be directed towards administration, and that leaves me, at least anyway, some difficulty in talking to residents who expressed concern, interest, or views, and I don't know what they are. So I would like to think that we can consider either today or perhaps later, given what was mentioned earlier in terms of formalities, that we consider requesting administration to copy councillors on major views submitted by residents on projects and on the content of surveys as distributed, such as the recent one on films and sidewalks.
Okay, so maybe we can add that to item 10 under your users. And Councillor Wilson, you have a
Yes, I'm not quite sure I framed this, your worship, but with Rebecca Capano's resignation, the nomination committee is now committee of one. We believe that, I should say by Eric, but I'm wondering if we should, because it's timing, this is a bit of an issue. If you're the PAC, if you should try and shoehorn something into today's agenda to get another member to that committee.
okay,
Yeah.
so we'll put that under council items. So 8.2 under council items.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further additions or omissions? Being none, we don't need a motion to approve that, right? Or we do now that.
Yeah.
So I'll take the motion to accept with the amendments. Councillor Carver?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wilson. All those in favor, signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to the acceptance of the minutes for the December 9th regular council meeting. Were there any errors or omissions? Any discussion? Being none, I will call for approval of the minutes of the December 9th, 2025 meeting. Or we can declare them. Okay. Thank you. Approved. Okay, announcements by councilmen. So here any on Council Carter.
Yeah, I just have one quick one. We received a letter yesterday from Communities in Bloom, Canada, saying, here we go for the next season and inviting us to register again to follow up on our dormant year last year and our fabulous success in 2024. So discussions will start and the excitement begins. So,
Great news, great news. I just want to wish everyone a happy new year. We're now 2026, that's such a large number. It's exciting. We are into an election cycle right now. Our special election has been called for the 14th of February, with nominations ceasing on January 20th. And we hope that we have lots of interest and participation, and most important, people need to vote. and be engaged and be asking questions, and if an individual comes to your door to talk to you, that you treat them respectfully and ask them questions and show some interest in the work that the operations at that time. It's a very important privilege with things that are going around in the world today. We are very fortunate to be able to vote. We have a democratic society, and let's practice it. I also want to thank those who came out to the levy on January 1st. It was well attended in spite of the weather that we had that day. I think some decided to stay home, but many came along. That is offered through the generosity of the Royal Canadian Legion, our town, and the fire department. And your representatives there, each of those entities. And we hope that we'll have other opportunities to get gathered together as a community in the coming months. We are moving now into public input, and would you like to speak, Richard, and state your name and address?
Everybody knows me, but I'm Richard now of 86 Fairmont Street, here in Mahone Bay. I just wanna address a couple of things. First of all, I have not heard anything about my request to purchase the land behind my little town. I was told that I would hear, but it's been almost 4 months now, and I haven't heard a thing. And I think it's something important that the town should consider is that when someone makes a request, that they get some sort of correspondence back, acknowledging it, and also where it stands. This communication there, I've heard it from different people on different subjects, that the communication there is very lacking. I'm not to use another word, but you know, I was interested in finding out what's going on with that piece of property. Can is the town council willing to sell it? What's the story behind it? Because I haven't heard anything. I talked to Dylan 3-4 months ago. He just said I'd be hearing from them. Well, 3-4 months later, I haven't heard a thing. So that's physically what I want to find out.
Thank you, Mr. Now. Any no other input? Okay. We will move on to, we have no public presentations by any group, so we will go to item 6, correspondences. 6.1 is a letter from Nicholas McGinnis, Warden of the Municipality of the County of Annapolis, about declining cell service. 6.2 is a letter from Minister Kim Maslin with the Department of Emergency Management, ending the bottled water reimbursement program. All those are in the package. Yes, Councilor.
That's the new that 6.1 and 6.2 we should receive and file.
Second by Paul, thank you. All those in favor, signify aye. No. Opposed, okay, no motion, it's okay. I keep looking around and there's the empty seats, it's an empty side, and one on screen. Okay, thank you. Staff reports, item 7. 7.1 is our staff report to council. So we want to bring it up. Is there anything anybody wants to discuss about? Any of the use that are all in 7.1?
Yeah, I'm still trying to get right to it, but it just really a query on the Nova Scotia Energy Board application. I'm not clear on what exactly happens here. Is this a matter of transferring already received funds from one part of the accounts to the electrical utility, or is it a new charge to customers?
On CAO?
Yeah, that because clarify that, of course, any kind of festival rate seems a little arcane, but essentially, back in 2023, when the town did a general rate application for the. At the time, Nova Scotia Utility Review Board, now the Nova Scotia Energy Board. We were requesting an increase in rates, and in the decision, they essentially, the board required those new rates to be phased in. So in the first year, they imposed a rate that was 10% below what the anticipated needed rate was. And then the full rates kicked in the following year. And in the decision, the board said that the town could then reapply to recover that deferred revenue, the revenue that was essentially the board acknowledged that the utility would require, but they felt it would be a shock for customers to have it recovered at that time. So essentially, we've now, the council's direction, reapplied to the now Nova Scotia Energy Board to recover that revenue from customers. So what it represents is instead of a 10% increase in 2023, for the domestic customer class, it's a 2.6% increase for the next 24 months, beginning in January of this year. So that would essentially recover that money that was not billed in 2023. And then once it's recovered, then the rates would go back. So it's a rider which stays on people's bills for a period of 24 months. And we have applied, it's a paper process, there isn't like an actual hearing date. There were no interveners or concerns, so it's our expectation that the board is about to validate those, that the new rider, and then we'll go on the next bill.
Want some coffee?
But just, thank you for the explanation too, and new chance to, residents. The province has been stepping in recently on the energy price, increases. Does that impact this at all? The province didn't register any concerns through the process, so I don't think so. But they have been obviously very involved in those Switch Power's general rate application and start ongoing. And we will, as a customer of Nova Scotia Power, there will be impacts on our utilities, what we pay for energy as a result of the NSPI decision. So when we do know that, we will then be calculating the impact on the customers from that. So provincial intervention in that process is certainly something that does accrue to our customer rates eventually. But it's through that process. They didn't indicate any interest in becoming involved in this particular program.
Councilor Bradley, how will this change in rates communicated to the public?
There will be an explanation on the bills, but I think that was the only thing that was anticipated at this time.
Perhaps we get like flag it again with the communications meeting on Thursday, just I don't think what the more might be needed.
Yeah, if you do that.
Because we still trying to edit,
We added that for you at the meeting.
yeah.
Thank you. Item 13, Mr. CAO, I'm just wondering if there's any update on this testing that was requested finally because of the install this year. Did the fire department, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's certainly, I don't think there's any update in terms of the fire department's orientation towards conducting the election drills in the winter months. I did note that staff were working with the department to put together the statistical information that had been requested from me. So, and that in lieu of carrying out this drill in a more timely fashion, the chief was assisting in providing access to those records. I think we do have the records, and the draft report is being worked on, which would hopefully satisfy what David Stove Commission has been looking for. But as far as the exercise, it was still in that same position as far as the chief's point of view on conducting the exercise before April.
So I guess if I could follow up, and just I'm really asking on behalf of the deputy mayor, is this all going to happen in a sufficiently timely fashion to keep everything intact in terms of a contract with Mayor Stove and others?
Well, I mean, in terms of the contract with Mayor's Cove, there's a requirement to provide notice around rate changes, so we'll certainly need that. We try to provide as much of the requested information that they're looking for along with that. And ultimately, that's not a condition of the agreement that we have with them, that's just a way of respecting that they're our partners and we're looking for information, and we'd like to satisfy that request. So, ultimately, I think whatever we give them is an improvement. But there may also still be rooms of improvement. And it sounds like the chief will manage to conduct an exercise before the AGM would take place, so they just have to consider the rates, but not before we're required to inform them before March of our expected increase.
And what about, I think, discuss maybe having a meeting with, the board and the commissioners, and at the Henry Fire Station, just to give a tour and talk about the upgrades to equipment and safety.
So we could incorporate that into the, providing them with the draft report on statistics.
Mhm.
But I think that would be something you look at towards the end of this month, because I know our staff are still working on that guy.
Mayor, just chiming in on this. So, a bit disappointed about the cadence of the solution, but I think we'll take the win if there's a commitment to proceed in due course. And I believe the election of the or re-election of the chief happens this evening, maybe. So, I mean, I know I believe it's this evening, by happenstance. So, I mean, I think this is an acknowledgement from the chief and the senior and the team at the fire hall that this is something the council is requesting on behalf of our key contacts in Mayor's Cove is I think a good first step. So let's just keep the momentum rolling. And I agree with the CAO. I think notice sooner rather than later is probably a good thing for us. So let's keep it rolling on a positive first step.
Okay. Any other further discussion on? Okay, and for, so does complete our discussion on the staff report to council? Does somebody want to make a motion to accept? Of Councillor Buckingham and second by Councillor Wilson. Okay, thank you. And all those in favor signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item 7.2, hedgerow, deferred from November 27th, and I think we also.
Can't believe I'm gonna say this. again.
No.
But in the interest of why we've continued to defer this item, I do believe we need to defer it until the first meeting in February.
Okay, it was a nice picture of hedgerow in that report that was presented though, and I enjoyed reading it again. So another to be continued.
Yeah, if that's acceptable to everyone, I guess we should get a motion to defer it to the next February.
Okay. Councillor Carver, thank you. Councillor Buckingham seconds. Okay, any discussion? I'm not call for the question. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is not. And moving on to item 7.3, the staff report for the regional emergency measures agreement amendments. We had a little bit of discussion prior to the meeting, just on some more technical.
Yeah, maybe it's worth just pointing out, for anybody who's trying to follow in the package, we did receive correspondence to council's last meeting in December. From the Remo advisory committee that was putting forward and presenting the new agreement. And council had some questions about, what are these changes, what's the impact of the changes? Directed staff to put this staff report on this agenda to provide further context to the request. The request to approve the change agreement still stands.
Right.
So that's the context for receiving this today, and Eric went through and provided some additional info and any questions about the information. We will take that, and I think the agreement is still up for consideration.
Yes. I think also it's going to be requested that we have this things for next week's meeting. So, is there any discussion on looking forward and It is an increase in what Mahone Bay will contribute. To the renal programs, it's more on equity. On a base, a flat base rate for everyone, and then addition according to our population. That's it.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that there really are only two major pieces of the fact that one was, and actually it was, I think originally recommended by Monday that there be a kind of a base rate for all participants as a kind of a cost of doing business, because we have to recognize that although you may or may not have need for the service at any given year, there should be a base cost to be able to participate. That, of course, affects us probably more than anybody. But so be it. So the difference is about $14,000. The other piece that's different is the threshold for approval of budgets and so on. Goes from 51% to 41% with three municipalities having to agree versus the form of tree. And this largely is a function of having Lunenburg now as part of the group. So the size of the group is increased and the dynamics have changed on that. So that's, those are the two key issues.
Mhm. And we do, even though we may not have an emergency, but we have actually, most people here, we do get regular updates from them, and whether we, especially, before storms, we get updates from them on a regular basis, and sometimes they're hourly, sometimes they're, a day or so before an event, to help us with getting messaging of the things that we.
So if there's no, so go ahead.
Well, it's just
Sorry.
a comment, and I guess maybe for the public. Is that we're asking for an increase in the contribution to the remote services, the regional emergency management services. And this effort is to ensure that we have countywide collaboration and coverage, and that it's felt that's really important. So that we're not all operating in silos, in separately, so. And that the conditions under which that collaboration is happening are tightened up. So it's hard to collaborate across 5 units, and this is really progress, I think, to make getting that happening.
And we are mandated to have an emergency. Yes,
That's what I was going to say, actually, just for the point of view of those who aren't familiar with what REMO is. It's the Regional Emergency Management Organisation. And yes, it is provincially mandated, so they have little choice, they have to do this, and we should be. So.
It costs us a lot more things.
So if there's nothing further, I'd like to move that we accept the report as written with the included recommended changes to the governance of Reno.
Okay, moved by Councillor Wilson and seconded by Councillor Carver, that we approve the suggested renal report. All those in favor, signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. We will take that message with us on Monday. I think we have a renal meeting. Okay.
I've actually, because it's been 20 years since I've taken my incident command training stuff, I'm actually scheduled next week to do the level 200, so make sure we don't get any fines for my not having my own officer. It's a good profession.
Yeah, and we do have staff involved in our REMO and very committed, training has to take place in order to keep up their qualifications, and we do have to provide so many staff for the centers, and those are all important roles, and they are filled by our staff here at General Law. Staff reports, and .4, it's a memo, appointment of development officer and relocation of Wait, so, I think the old council Trevor,
I will make the motion that council appoint Chris Burns as development officer for the town of Mahone Bay. Effective January 13th, 2026, and until such time as the appointment is revoked.
Second.
seconded by Councilor Wilson. Okay. And any discussion? Is it in the title or is it, yeah, so why didn't it say like for every time instead of she's moving? The wording was sort of, I thought so that's, oh, is it, oh. All right, all those in favor, let's identify the option, both nay. Motion is carried. Okay. Councilor Wilson,
And I do believe the council revoke the appointment of Elaine Boone Shaw as the development officer for the town of Mahone Bay.
there's something?
Yes, is
Very good. Any discussion?
I have no idea. Whether she can.
The memo does say that she have retired.
Oh, no, okay.
She retired in December.
As the seconder of the motion, could I suggest that it's being reworded to say that council revoke the appointment of Elaine Boone Shaw as the, on her retirement as the development officer for the, never mind.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It
That's a good
just,
idea.
it just sounds better.
It say who has retired.
Yeah,
It's-
Yeah.
Elaine Shaw, who has retired. So, yes, thank you, that would work.
I'm
Can we do that?
happily do that. Whatever it is.
I think it's kind of information.
Well.
It's not like we talked her. What do you think?
Is that all right?
All right. Any other further discussion? Yeah, all those in favor, signify aye. Opposed, yes, the motion is carried. Thank you very much for moving along here, making good time. We are now down to, maybe, we're down to council items, and we have Council Carver.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm bringing a motion to council regarding the group, the meetings called Mayor's Wards, Deputies and CAO meetings. This group has existed in the county, for many years, and it consists of mayors or wardens of the 5 municipal units in the county, their deputies and their CAOs. They meet on a semi-regular basis, hosted in turn by each of the 5 municipalities. Agendas are prepared, presentations are heard, and recommendations are made. I believe they may have included the region of Queens also in this group, but I'm not sure. One group that's, one formal role the group has played is to recommend to councils candidates for county-wide community advisory committees such as accessibility and anti-racism and discrimination. And during my 13 years on council, I've been puzzled about this group, which to my knowledge has no terms of reference, no guidelines regarding communication and accountability to the local citizens. To my questions about the group, the answer has always been, it's just an informal get together with no minutes taken. I'm not alone in my questions about the function and format of this group. And I fully recognize the value of mayors, wardens, and deputies and CAOs meeting periodically. I recognize the need for, in terms of community of practice, with sharing concerns and so on, but what does concern me is that there's no terms of reference and no guidelines about accountability. I'm not alone in my questions. I've heard many councillors questioning the existence of this group, how it works, who are frustrated by the lack of transparency about this ambiguous component in our governance structure, especially when there's little or no consistent input or feedback mechanisms for councils. And such lack of clarity is problematic. So I'd like to, I'm making the following motion that council direct staff to prepare a letter for the signature of the mayor of the town of Mahone Bay addressed to councils of the municipalities in Lunenburg and Queens counties requesting the development of terms of reference for meetings of mayors, wardens, deputies, and CAOs to be reviewed and approved by all participating municipalities.
I'll second it.
Okay,
It's so good.
Counselor Arlosi? Yes, go ahead.
Well, I guess I second it largely to make it possible to have a conversation, because I'm a little bit puzzled about how we create terms of reference for a group that has such a wide ranging mandate. I mean, it strikes me that group of all the quasi organized groups in the area can talk about just about any issue. And I'm not sure how you would squeeze that all into the terms of reference, so maybe the council could help clarify what she's thinking about in that term.
Terms of reference, at least some, if not a formal set of terms of reference such as we're familiar with for other committees, that we're attached to. At least some minimal guidelines about how communication in and communication out works. And who gets information, when. In a recent experience, I was aware that different people on different councils were getting information at different times. Some didn't get any, and some got a lot. And that seemed to be problematic. So there were, as if there was no sort of general guideline about how to provide the member councils with feedback from the group. So if not a very detailed terms of reference, at least some stated in ecology that recognize guidelines.
Council Crawford?
Yeah, some. Most of the points have been made, I think, really, there. I understand the desire to have better information on what might come out of these meetings. But sometimes structure, formality and control process stand in the way of the open discussion, and that's valuable. So I'm not in particular in favor of a detailed terms of reference structure, and whatever does come out of these meetings are not enactable without the councils agreeing to whatever is being discussed. So there is a control process there, point of view. So I would welcome informal feedback on what takes place, but that's as far as I would go.
Bill, what's the question? Is there someone from every council who's bringing this forward, or are you alone? Because I feel very uncomfortable putting my signature on the letter. Maybe it should come from you on behalf of the council or another member of council, but I feel very uncomfortable. I don't share with you. My understanding is it's a networking time. It's not a committee. We don't have a mandate. Those are my understandings from the meetings. I just feel uncomfortable putting my name that if to make people think that I'm in support of this, I'm sort of denying the whole situation.
Well, just a procedural clarification, obviously, if the motion was passed, that it would be appropriate to have your signature on this coming to the council. So I think that's why it's constructed the way it is, and your discomfort probably speaks to not supporting the motion as written. Rather than suggesting a member of council would write to the other council, so I think would be procedurally not appropriate. So that's all you're taking. And I think
I understand that, but
should not pass.
I need to say that I don't feel comfortable with Councilor Lissy.
Well, I think we understand your position. I don't know what Joe.
Well,
He has participated in these meetings or not, but
so, I mean, my thinking is that the various mayors of the town are directly are, you know, they're voted for directly. And there's I think from a community's perspective, there's a level of trust that when they get together, they're getting together to talk about topics that, you know, are in their community's best interests. And I think there's a certain level of flexibility that, you know, an informal meeting where minutes are not necessarily taken affords them to discuss topics. What I'm aware of is that if there is any consensus that gets developed through those meetings, and that consensus comes in the form of recommendations back to council, that those recommendations do go back to council and need to be ratified by each individual council. So, you know, there are no decisions that are being made out of these meetings, and I'm not sure how often they happen. Probably, I don't know, Mayor, are these meetings once a quarter or something like that, maybe? Like 4 or 5 times a year, perhaps?
Yes.
So like I'm unaware of any scenarios, any situations where there have been decisions made in those meetings that have resulted in a change of policy or a change of direction or a change of strategy that have not come back for ratification from the individual councils. I think the other issue is that, you know, our council enjoys the reputation of being completely transparent, seeking transparency where it's available. You know, that may not necessarily be the case with our partners. And I think we always have to remember that, you know, we're kind of like we're the small dog at the bowl, and we have partners and we have strategic and we have these relationships with these other municipalities that we need to cultivate and develop. And I think we need to be prepared to, like, if we demand strings be attached, we have to also not be shocked if we're not invited to these things. So, you know, it kind of cuts both ways. It's like the fact that there are no terms of reference, the fact that there are no, you know, formality, there's a lack of formality also means that you may find yourself not invited to meetings if you think that anything that's discussed there is going to be immediately put on blast on social media. So, you know, I think that it is appropriate, and I think kind of reading the tea leaves on Councillor Carver's intent, it's just, you know, I think the community and the council may benefit from having some feedback from the mayor, if the mayor deems that appropriate, through a report, if anything topical or interesting comes up. But that's really more about personal, you know, just, you know, how you'd like to interact with the rest of the council rather than a formal mandate. So I think you know, I've never been to one of these meetings, but you know, I don't think I can support the motion.
Anybody else? Councilor Wilson?
Yeah, just to be clear, I seconded the motion in order to get this conversation started, but absent some lightning bolt, I would not support the motion either, for the same reasons that Deputy McPhee was illustrating.
Unfortunately, I have to say, I had to leave the meeting, the last meeting where they were discussing this, the schedule was changed that for that meeting, but our clerk was there attending the meeting, and they did have a discussion, and if you'd like to give us some insight into what the discussion was.
Well, I think that is a lot of the challenge that's kind of being gotten at with this motion, is who is to say for the meeting was not having confidence. What can then be or should be like that, that there's very different, you know, expectations. I think one thing that's clear is that generally speaking, it's not public information. So it needs to be relayed back to the councils in some appropriate manner, but I guess I'm saying that in part so that Eric doesn't feel he needs to relay information from that session that he might happen to recall. It's not really his discretion to share it publicly, but none of that is in any terms of reference. There's nothing that indicates what the expectation should be. So I think that's where the, if I can say, lack of common expectations amongst the 5 participating or even 6 now with 3 participating councils is that, you know, everyone has their own conventions around how information from those discussions is shared. And I think a bit of a test in those conventions is, what if your mayor can't even be there due to the conflict of schedule? So, you know, that's probably raised some more challenge around So then how do you do it? But if your mayor wasn't there, are you entitled to share that? How would you share that information? Just to kind of save Eric from having to talk another meeting, I'm sure you consider me about if there's some specific stuff that we actually are thinking about with that meeting. But I think more generally, it's this question of how are those meetings being communicated back to the councils in the absence of any sad stuff?
On Council Prime.
Your worship, I regret having used the terms of reference in the motion. Because that suggests a formal structure and formal requirements. For everybody involved, and essentially my sense was to have some clarification and information. About the things that with RCA was just referencing. How communication is provided back to member councils. So that there is some consistency. So I would like to it's too late to withdraw the motion, but it's I just would like to clarify whether a slightly different motion could come back to council, not specifically without terms of reference, but a more general kind of procedure.
Council Wilson.
I don't know why you would say it's too late to withdraw the motion, because I don't think it is. And it might be wise to do that and be suggesting so that in future, a slightly different motion could be presented without there a slap bang.
Is that correct? It's not too late to withdraw the motion at this point after it's been seconded and
No,
discussed?
it wouldn't be too late to withdraw the motion. I guess it just worth mentioning that the less formal approach, if it is only concerning our practice here, probably isn't something that would be, subject to a motion. I will say that any interaction with the other units needs some level of informal clarity to be made. So if we're thinking about just what are our practices, that may be a different, maybe just a conversation of policy and strategy would be the most appropriate way to talk about our practices.
I feel strongly about somehow attaining some level of clarity about how it all works. And so that everybody's comfortable with it, and I fully respect the need for the community of practice discussions and exchanges.
So I certainly put that on a future agenda, or ask for agenda items. Or discussion topics, and I could certainly go on that. I could bring it to the group. For a discussion, I feel more comfortable with that, and I would certainly do that. Before putting my signature on a letter that I feel uncomfortable with them.
Okay, if I withdraw this motion, would you need a motion to do that?
I
It's so informal, we don't
yeah,
need
I don't
motions.
think so.
Just need my agreement, which you have.
Pardon?
So you just need my agreement, which you have.
Yes, okay. Withdraw, I will withdraw the motion now and look forward to more discussion.
Okay,
Thank you, everybody, for your thoughts.
and we will need a motion.
No, I mean, you don't need a motion to raise, you could raise this, any of those things. I guess the only thing I want to note is there's no expectation that the other units would have any obligation to engage in a wider discussion with their councils or even report on that conversation.
Right.
So just to keep that clear, because I think it may still result in the members of different councils saying, hey, so Mayor, did you talk about this at your last meeting? And a variety of responses to that, but I think that's
Well, there are times
in
we are
line with
asked,
the informality of.
we are asked sometimes, like when we were looking for some kind of economic development body, we did bring that information back to that.
And I'm the only one who's been around for reforms long enough to know that they've on several occasions discussed whether they should have more standards in terms of reporting. And that the answer on those occasions has not been any change. But there's only a group of people. It's an appropriate time maybe to initiate any conversation.
Different members of council around at different tables.
Yeah,
Times changing.
yeah.
Anyhow, thank you for the discussion.
Thank you for bringing it up. And, you'll, I'll move my part of that to forward. Please, I'm moving down to 8. This is an 8.2. What's there?
You're not meeting, please?
Yes,
Sorry, that's, yeah.
yes. Councilor Wilson? Oh,
I'm not quite sure how to proceed here because it really just came up last week, as you all know. But with Rebecca's resignation, we now have a nominating committee of 1. I'm happy to continue on because I always like dictatorships. But but it may not be quite appropriate, so I don't know whether we can nominate someone, have to volunteer at this table today, or whether we need to do something later. I don't-
Down to whether anyone else around the table will agree to join you in this committee, but I think it's in order to just do a quick appointment. Until you get the new members and can work at everybody's availability.
I'd be happy,
right,
And fill in temporarily, yeah.
okay, all right.
That's-
So you have You're the person there.
Yeah, we
Right
just-
there. Great.
so
Thank you,
Council should
Councilor
appoint Councilor Paul.
Okay.
If somebody. would-
So, would someone like to make that
How
motion?
to make that motion?
second it.
And second by Councilor Carver. All those in favor signify aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion.
We have a meeting today, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
If we do oppose.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That was a quick tidy up. And we will now go on to our committee reports. Item 9, we have the draft minutes of the planning and advisory. I think a correction was made there.
Yeah, it's more of a mission and a subsequent reissue of the agenda. There was a motion agreed to at committee to present to council, and I can read out that motion. You do have copies of it, but for the sake of everybody listening,
well, yeah, you're actually making the motion now.
yes,
Yeah.
precisely. So the motion is that the committee recommend to council in light of council's commitment for better communication, openness with our residents, and in recognition of the value of public membership on town committees, the terms of reference to planning advisory committee the advice to read as follows. Committee mandates the responsibilities of the planning advisory committee shall include A, reviewing planning matters referred by council and making recommendations to council with respect to planning matters, including development agreements and amendments, stimulus for planning strategy and land use bylaw. And B, reviewing and making recommendations to council with respect to planning matters, alternatives thereto, and related options as they arise. And C, conducting updated municipal planning strategy and bylaws every 10 years. The previous mandates had a section A but no section B, which is now listed in B section, if you will. And the practical matter impact of this is that it removes the restriction on planning advisory committee only being able to discuss matters referred to it by council, which is at odds with every other committee that the town has with public membership on it.
Is that
You need a second for that motion? Your second?
No, I seconded it. I'll do it again.
Okay, second by Councilor Wilson. Discussion. Councilor Carver.
I feel at a disadvantage here because I don't have the information in writing. I know I had commented earlier that there was a missing section in the agenda that we have been circulating. And then was notified that the agenda had been corrected to include the motion. And what I have in front of us right now is the original. Without the motion. So I just feel I don't have the information in support the motion, although I understand the principle of it, I didn't follow all the points that they said ultimately listed.
So I guess I'll say my apologies, it's a version control thing, we were given the new one, but we left the old one open. I didn't delete the old one. I could try to delete the old one, but at this point, if you didn't read the one that came out, then that's maybe.
Mayor, if I could just chime in, so I wonder if Councillor Palferman would be amenable to deferring this topic until our next meeting. Just so I'm open-minded about the proposal. I wouldn't mind a little more soak time personally, just to, familiarize myself a little bit more, have a few more conversations before weighing in definitively on the motion. And I'm wondering, I just think a little bit more time would be helpful for me personally. I'm not sure if anyone else would be of that opinion around the table.
Council Wilson,
Yes, I think that's a good idea, and not least because then we can get the proper exact wording out to everyone, so they can have a good look at it.
is there something here, maybe we should go to policy and strategy at the end of the month before our next council meeting, would that help to put it on that agenda? Councillor Copeland?
This isn't the first time that councillors discussed this particular issue. It's the first time a motion's come forward. Because we were asked to go back and develop a motion, which we did. And I found the time to. So councillors already had time to discuss this. Having said that, it's not essentially time sensitive. So it's okay with me if we defer this to the next meeting. I don't really think we to beat this to death over in policy and strategy. It's a fairly simple issue that the committee is totally sync with all the other committees in terms of what they can do. And in simple terms, I'd rather have input from the community ahead of projects and development plans than I would after the fact. And it's more difficult to adjust and more expensive to adjust. So that's the rationale behind it. That said, I'll won't withdraw the motion, but defer the motion until the following meeting.
Yeah, procedurally, we defer entire reports and things. Now that the motion's been made, we should actually do a motion to defer the motion. And so if somebody wants to make a motion to defer the motion that's on the table to council's next meeting, then that would be voted on, and that's the appropriate motion on the table.
Based on feedback, I will make a motion.
Sure, but happy to make that motion. And I just think a little more soak time, to Councillor Palferman's point, would allow us to have a more definitive up or down on this in due course. So like I said, I'm open-minded about it, and I just feel I don't really feel entirely prepared to make the call this morning, but I'm certainly willing to do that 2 weeks from now.
And second to motion by Councillor Carter. Thank you. Any further discussion?
And that will be pretty clear, we defer into the next council meeting, not the final day.
And because it is the motion being deferred, Eric, let's just snip out the motion, so it's super clear in the package, it doesn't need to be in the minutes anymore.
Any further question? All those in favor, signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried, thank you. Moving along to 9.2. Climate and environment, are there any?
Well, but we don't have any motions from the fund examination, but as always, conversations are fulsome and dynamic at that committee.
Yes, we are. We certainly are. Thank you. And 9.3 Asset Management Committee. The draft minutes of December 18th. Councillor Palferman.
That being me up again. Yes, at committee, we had a discussion about as we always do, about principal priorities and planning forward some distance ahead. Having completed or almost completed the Edgewater project, which was originally based upon flood protection and so on. We remain aware that the town is still subject to the flooding and more work needs to be done on coastal protection. It's a complex and lengthy subject that requires a lot of pre-work and time, the time it will take. There is an opportunity at the moment to apply for funding from yes, that's right, coastal planning and support, which expires in mid-February, I think.
Yeah, the 11th.
The 11th of February. So the proposal is the council apply to for financial support for the coastal planning and to begin a process, phase 2 process if you want, if you wish.
Is there a second for that motion? Councilor Hartwell, thank you. Discussion.
Just a quick comment on, so obviously this funding is mostly for planning matters. And the way that it came up to, as the management committee rather than planning advisory, although there's some crossover membership, right, as I hope please. Was that, you know, if you look at the 2016 work that was done, looking at the shoreline, looking at the potential along the coastline, we at that time, we approached it, you know, as a combination of planning and infrastructure. So you're saying, well, there's a lot of private properties involved. There's also infrastructure solutions to coastal erosion. In this case, the funding would be coming from the province on the planning side to engage property owners along the shoreline, particularly the commercial downtown, in a conversation about the town's recently updated planning strategy and, you know, potential for future infrastructural improvement. So it is a two-part conversation, whether it's coming from asset management or planning. It's just the timely thing here is the PAC would not be meeting in time to give this recommendation to the council. So staff are prepared to submit an application if connected, and the application will definitely speak to engaging the community around planning and the decisions that were made through our planning process, but also about infrastructure, because the nature of the funding is it is a planning support.
Planning leads to asset management structure, which is where the two link together. It's important these days to actually have a plan in place so we actually recognize risks that exist and being processed, doing something about it to the extent possible. That's why it's important to move forward on this at this time. Yeah.
Any other discussion? No?
I do
yes.
have one question, because I'm curious talking with down the downtown for which is fine. Would this also include planning to do remedial work on the Mavis Cove section of the highway?
Yes, it's only coastal, so it's those two sections.
So there's not.
Yeah,
it's
not
kind of
out
out
here,
here.
it's property restoration.
Yeah, cool.
So how far does postal go with the entrance to Ernst Brook here, by Freelands?
Yeah, definitely the tribal area can be included, so we may find that the pharmacy and Northern Siding folks want to talk about that aspect as well, that may be part of that.
It's a large umbrella.
It's a large umbrella. Okay, so it was probably the high tide mark or,
Yeah, the tribal area is up to the aquatic gardens.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's good.
Still planning and still.
Yeah, yeah,
Two together.
good. All right. Anything else? All right, ready for the question? All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you all. We're really trying to get that in place the first release. South Shore Open Doors Association, not really report, and you all received a copy of that. And
Yes,
then-
I do just want to add to that, if people aren't aware, it has been in the news. The South Shore Open Door Association has acquired property in Bridgewater, two separate areas just near the corner of Dufferin and Cruz. Where that includes 82 units, apartments or affordable rents. So that's really excellent, excellent good news, and they are looking to develop more. And that was with funding from the Department of East and Community Services that now is social opportunity. I can't remember the full name of the meeting, but that's really good news.
And the report said Dufferin and Maine, are they referring?
I meant King, that was me.
Yeah, but in the report, it did say. It's
Oh,
in Maine,
yeah, I
they're Maine, and I'm like, where's Main Street? And in Bridgewater, and but I assume
Yeah.
it's Maine,
yes,
okay. But the report did state Maine.
And you don't have to digress too much, but is there a definition of affordability in this that we can look at? I just think, because I know Eric is, working on
Yeah.
this from a housing accelerator side. It's always tough to come to a definition.
yeah.
We just don't see what
I
it's.
suggest you reach out to the SOLA staff. They're on top of everything.
Yeah. All right,
It's
thank you.
less explicit in the mandate of the folks renovating the old nursing home here in town, but they have spoken to the likely affordability. I'm just curious how to do things with fair.
Yeah. No, it's such a slippery concept, it
Yeah.
has been for years.
And they're both renos of old buildings, which, notionally, I think
Yeah.
is better square footage costs
Yeah.
than building new right now, although you. Kind of consider that.
Well, that's good bones.
Well, the thing is that buying these units essentially protects affordability. And the owner of those units recognize that if they went into the public market, the rents would go up so high that people would be rental evictions.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that was really good.
So they are occupied units.
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
good, good.
yeah.
Okay.
At the back of it. So these are existing units that have just changed.
Yeah,
hands.
yeah,
Okay. So there's no new housing involved.
no. But it's protecting existing units from huge rent.
Ready for the question? All those in favor, signify aye.
Will we approve it?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, there's an emotion.
Muscle memory there, hey?
Yes, okay, that's what I meant.
Keep this train moving.
We'll take a motion to accept the committee reports as presented. Okay, thank you. And second by Councilor Wilson, thank you. All those,
I would do the vote and then I'll say
okay,
it.
all those in favor signify aye.
I just wanted to say that.
Opposed, nay. The motion is carried.
That the remote session that was held for the public here in Mahone Bay.
Yes.
It was arranged by the senior safety program. In collaboration with the remote staff. And it was, I just sadly on the report that it was very poorly attended. It's unfortunately when the people can have this issue of offering things that you think are of importance and interest to the public and they're poorly attended, so. More discussion of communications. Possibly, if you have any thoughts, let us know.
Yeah. But staying on the topic that we didn't, do the, Univer County, but we did get the letter off to the minister that we, and thank you for, supporting that, letter of support that we only have those of the other existing municipalities, that are certified as being safety. That piece of work has been completed. It's been taking us months to wordsmith and get those letters of support in that. It's done well. We also have support from the police and services and Univer County to go off with those too. All right, under new business, Councilor Copeland, you got the floor again.
Yes, well, I more or less said what I had to say at the outset of the meeting. It's based upon improved communication, if you will. We, as a town gets input from citizens on various issues, many issues, no doubt. Many of which are minor, but there are also projects that town has from time to time, significant projects where input is directed to administration and and another version of that is that we have surveys which issued most recently on the roads and sidewalks and the like, where we may get a synthesized report from administration, but basically we're not seeing the direct feedback from our residents, so that makes it difficult to have conversations with residents, and we don't know what they've been telling us, nor what the replies were, and so on and so forth. So I would like to think that this will be brought forward as a motion for the next meeting or the appropriate meeting. When perhaps for the staff back up again as council, but council does get copied on principal inputs and requests from citizens on major projects and issues and on surveys, so to allow us a better feel for what the community is feeling and believing.
Is there a second with that?
It's a notice.
It's a notice of motion, okay.
Yeah, I guess if I could say, if maybe it's a notice of motion, maybe it's that's just more discussion. I certainly would have concerns about the motion as it's put, because I don't have any idea how staff would action that without a lot more specificity. I think it's a discussion for policy and strategy personally, whether it needs to come forward as a motion from Councilor Paul Freeman and then be referred to policy and strategy, or whether council would just take up the opportunity to talk at a policy and strategy meeting. I would sure love to have the opportunity to speak to the sort of practical implementability of changes rather than just having a motion on council. But that's, you know, how you want to handle that from here, but that's my perspective in terms of that. I would be, yeah, have some more discussion to be able to figure out how to implement such a thing.
Not sure what comes first on the calendar, whether it's policy and strategy. If it is policy and strategy first.
Yeah.
that-
It is, it's two days. 2 days.
So Mayor, I think it's Councilor Paul Furman's prerogative, I think, to make the motion, the notice of motion if he feels that's a good idea. And you know, I think the CAO provides some reasonable advice here, but you know, I think if Councilor Paul Furman wants to make the motion, wants to provide a notice of motion today, then we'll wait patiently to see what the motion looks like in 2 weeks, and we can evaluate what to do from there, rather than kind of litigate it this morning. So I guess Brian, if like, you know, feel free to make the notice of motion. I think that's completely within your purview and prerogative. Don't.
I'm aware this is within my prerogative, but on the other hand, we just mentioned that some clarity might be needed, a definition might be required. That could appear a policy and strategy in the near future.
Councilor Carr.
A notice of motion need not, and probably should not be debated or discussed at the time. It's simply a notice of motion, and the proponent can withdraw at any time or change it, or change the approach at any time between now and the next meeting.
So I think that a decision right now is, should we first go to policy and strategy?
No, we should not even be,
Okay,
unless the proponent wants to do that.
okay.
That's all I would say, is that it'd be Brian's call if he wants to make those motion today or bring it up on the 26th and then decide.
I thought I'd already said that it would be a good idea to discuss it further, policy and strategy, in terms of definition of strategy.
And then Brian, you can always provide a notice of motion direct to the clerk for something.
Yes.
We need a motion to move that policy and strategy.
Now, it wouldn't be in order right now anyway, so this would be with us.
Okay.
So as long as you're comfortable with it, Eric will look it out for you.
Okay. are you, you're fine with?
Yeah.
All right, going to, I guess that's a go soon. So are there any questions from the public? Anyone in the gallery have a question that they'd like to have answered or considered? And anyone online who just, no one. Oh,
We have not,
Sorry, it's not really a question, but statement of sorts. I didn't realize it was a communications committee. I'm glad to hear that. And I hope they take into consideration all the communications that staff, I've heard the same thing, but different planning things that staff haven't been back to them. So I know in my case, I haven't heard anything. So guess hopefully the communications committee will look into that.
okay, thank you, Ms. Farrell. Yeah,
Oh, I just want to say, if I may, this copy,
Oh.
that. I misused the term committee, it's an internal working group. Which does include counselors and staff, but it's not. It doesn't include public members.
It's not a standing committee of council. Okay. But we're making progressive work. We're getting this. Okay, so there are no questions, how many people online?
9 down to 8.
None, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Someone needs to go to work.
Yeah.
All right, Councilor Feeney, is he going to join us later?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, so, we are going to move into closed session to discuss, number 12.1 MGA 22-2A, acquisition, sale, lease, and security of municipal property. Item 12.2 MGA 22-2G, legal advice eligible for solicitor client privilege. 12.3 MGA 22-2E, contract negotiations. Would someone like to move that we go into closed session? Councilor Carver, is there a second? Councilor Wilson, all those in favor, signify aye. The motion is carried. We thank you for coming to and joining us for our council meeting today and come back again. And we thank all of you who tuned in at home and happy New Year to everybody and let's make this a good one.